Pitch, what a cracking local derby, home game to finish the season. You know, you can't ask for much more in terms of the entertainment, can you? It was just a bit disappointing to concede late on.
Yeah, I thought it was a good game, and as you say, entertainment-wise, the 2,000 odd that came in would have seen a good game. Two good sides, I think. Very entertaining. I enjoyed the game, so that's the main thing. And a point which we richly deserved. A little bit disappointed we haven't got three. We could have just hung on in there for the last 10-15 minutes. We'd have loved the three, obviously. I think the performance warranted at least one. But you're playing against a top step 4 side, you know, with the greatest respect, with step 2, step 3 players, with the resources they've got. And I think our lads from start to finish were magnificent in terms of defensive qualities, defending our goal, and making sure we gave a real good account of ourselves. And everybody that's been involved today, whether it's starting 11 or subs, you know, have done really well for the football club.
And what a great start to the afternoon now. It must have taken a lot of pressure off the side to score within the first minute. Yeah,
well, that's a threat, isn't it? Jimmy's throw, any free kicks we get with McQuilkin's dead ball, corners for, you know, it's a weapon that we've got at the football club. We have good quality from the throw, from set pieces, from open play with crosses. And the game's all about putting the ball in the box and trying to put teams under pressure, especially at this level. And we do that well. I'd like to see us win more first contacts from set pieces, from dead ball, from open play, and from the throw. But what a start, like you say. You know, Jimmy throws it in there. We go and make a nuisance of ourselves, and we get the goal. Fantastic start. And then, you know, for the next 10-12 minutes, we're on top. We're getting territory. We get a foothold in the game, and we needed a second. But with a quality side like Hednesford, they were always going to come back into it. They have, you know, the starting 11's quality and the 5 subs they're bringing on of huge quality. So, you know, we were always going to have to concede chances. We were going to have a good goalkeeper performance, which we did. And we were going to have a good back 4 and a whole team defensive performance, which we did.
And Scott Warrer got the man of the match. And I think one of his blocks early on, just as Hednesford were starting to come into it, and it looked a certain goal, didn't it? And somehow he kept it out, and that just typified the whole defensive unit, as you say.
Yeah. I think the whole side defensively, you know, from Dan Cockline, who, you know, running the channels, closing centre halves down, and, you know, he's put a right shift in today, Dan has, and he had to for us, because you know, Hednesford threw everything at us in a 4-2-4 formation, and they just got both wide players sitting right on Burnsy and Ben. So that Burnsy and Ben needed both Cayman's and then Jono's help, and then Liam Brazier's help, you know, because of the 2v1s with the fullbacks, and they can afford to do that. You know, they needed the win to try and win the league, and they're pushing bodies forward. They've got 2 number 9s who are a huge threat and presence. So it was difficult for us defensively, but you know, I've got to give my lads huge credit. And like you say, Scott Warrer's block on the line, I think it just shows what we're about. You know, and my sides or our sides are like that. You know, defensively, we put our bodies on the line. We've got to be mean and horrible and hard to play against and hard to score against, and we are. And we've got a little bit going forward. You know, and we can score goals. I would have liked us to have more of a goal threat on the day. But again, you're playing against the top side.
But we lost Cayman on the half hour, didn't we? What was the injury?
Calf or Achilles. So you know, he couldn't carry on. If it had just been a kick, then Cayman would have carried on. You know my thoughts on Cayman. You know, his leg has to be hanging off for him to come off, and he couldn't carry on. So, you know, we brought him off.
Because he was having the better of the fullback at the time, wasn't he? And linking well with Dan Cockline, which I suppose we didn't see so much of for the rest of the first half when Liam Brazier came on to replace him. But we got a little bit more connection.
Yeah, it's difficult because they moved the ball around really well. They've got quality players, and we struggled to get our front 3 connected today. And that it's difficult because you're playing against high quality, you know. And if we'd have looked after the ball a little bit better, we may have got Cayman and Jono, and then Jono and Brazier in the game a little bit more. But they had to do more defensively today than they did offensively, which is going to happen at times when you're playing against top sides. Having said that, you know, we had some good chances second half. The first 20 minutes of the second half, we've had a couple of breakaways. We kept the ball well, and we've had chances that we could have worked the goalkeeper. So, you know, they've had most of the ball. They've had some high quality balls going into our box. I thought Leon was superb in goal. I thought defensively, as you've said, Scott Warrer was superb. But I repeat, to a man, I think they were all superb.
Yeah, another player that had to go off injured was James McQuilkin.
Yeah, just sore back, fell on his back. He did it Saturday actually away at Avro, and went up for a header, come down hard ground, you know, and a sore back. And in games like this, with the high quality that they've got, you can't carry, you know, an injured player. You see Ash was struggling as well. His groin from last weekend. That's why we left him out Saturday. And you've got lads now with 2 games in 48 hours that carrying knocks and playing in knocks. But when you've got 2 or 3 or 1 or 2, you know, limping round, you can't carry passengers. So we've got to get them off and get players on the pitch and hopefully stem the flow.
Unfortunately, you know, yes, we want to finish as high as possible, but you know, there's not too much riding on next week's game in terms of, you know, there's no relegation, no playoffs for us. So, you know, we can possibly afford to rest those players if they're not fully fit.
Yeah, well, if they're not fit, they won't play, you know, but we won't be resting anybody, Chris. We're going up to Clitheroe to win. The season's not over, it's the next game. We have a chance, I think, still of going up a position from 12th, possibly 11th, possibly 10th. So there'll be no change in the process from us. You know, if McQuilkin, Cayman, whoever aren't fit after Thursday night's training, then you know, we'll put somebody else in. The young lads will go in. But foot on the gas, big game Saturday.
Yeah, well done on today's draw. It's a cracking result. The biggest league game we've had here for over 30 years, and I think, as you say, I think the fans have been thoroughly entertained with that. And,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, I'd like to thank the fans. I mean, to come in their numbers, 2,037, 33. You know, and I think 800 tickets sold to Hednesford. So you know, it's a 1,300 gate from our part. Weather not great, you know, and they've backed us, and they've backed us since we walked through the door. They've been absolutely superb, both home and away. Can't thank them enough. I'm just pleased we gave them a real spirited performance and really dug in and perhaps made up for the disappointment on Boxing Day.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Neil.
No worries, thank you. Cheers.